Hello everyone, this is Nitpicking Nerd, and today I want to talk some more about the recent episode of Star Trek Discovery and the big revelation about what caused the burn and how it relates to the rest of the series and the rest of the franchise. So this will contain spoilers about the recent episode, in which they revealed that the burn was caused by a Kelpian man who got mutated by the lithium, and when he gets scared and if he yells out, that sends a wave which destroys all the dilithium inside of warp cores somehow. And I'm also guessing they will explain that music that a lot of people around the galaxy somehow all knew about. Maybe that also originated from this Kelpian. Maybe he was singing that music and it somehow also got sent to the entire galaxy and it became popular, I guess. So it remains to be fully explained, but so far we kind of have the explanation for this mystery box of what caused the burn. And to say I'm unhappy about this would be an understatement, because there were so many other ways it could have been done cleverly and in a way that would tie to older Star Trek shows. You know, they had all kinds of things like the Omega particles and subspace being damaged, and they had all kinds of nearly omnipotent energy entities which are not all enlightened, that maybe some of them would be nefarious and to do all kinds of things to mess with the galaxy, or maybe even for a good reason. Maybe some entity did it to stop all the wars in the galaxy, because by stopping people from traveling from planet to planet, it would prevent people from trying to conquer other people's planets or interfering on other people's planets. And so maybe someone did it for a good reason. So I made a lot of theory videos about all of those options, and in the end it's something kind of silly, like a mutant Kelpian who accidentally caused all of this, not even on purpose. And so I think that's not a very good explanation. It's just not that interesting and not that plausible, and it really ruins the suspension of disbelief. You can't really buy this, especially if you want to accept this show as being part of the bigger Star Trek franchise. Then it makes no sense, because if we know there are so many other advanced aliens out there and nearly omnipotent beings like the Q and many other types of aliens, so how come none of them did anything to prevent this? And so it doesn't really make sense. Unless, I guess, maybe they allowed it to happen, maybe because of what I said earlier, maybe they thought it would teach the galaxy a lesson or something, so maybe someone allowed it to happen or even helped it to happen, but the show will never go into any of that kind of debates. Instead, they have their own explanation that it was just a Kelpian who did it. And the only thing I kind of like it was the fact that it was set up back in season 2 that the Kelpians have some kind of dangerous thing about it. You know, when the Baul showed up, the Baul were the ones who were enslaving the Kelpians, and then Discovery tried to free the Kelpians, and then the Baul told them, you don't know what they're capable of, and so don't mess with the Kelpians. And so that kind of set up something to be revealed about the Kelpians later. And I even suggested back when I made kind of a theory video what season 3 will be about, I suggested maybe the Kelpians will be the big villains in the next season, because they always show that they are so advanced, they have so many skills, they are geniuses, they have all those supernatural abilities, they can run faster than anyone, they can see better than anyone, they can hear better than anyone, and so they are really advanced beings, and maybe they will evolve even more in the future. So if they jump 1,000 years in the future, then they should be the rulers of the galaxy in that time. And so I kind of half expected the Kelpians to be the big bad of this season, but they totally disappeared until this episode when they show this one Kelpian. But he does turn out to be kind of unintentionally dangerous to the whole galaxy, so that kind of ties a little bit back into what was said about them in season 2 of them being dangerous, and it also kind of makes the Discovery indirectly responsible for all of this, because remember, Discovery, and specifically Michael Burnham in the Red Angel suit, were the ones who freed the Kelpians, and right after that, like 1 week after that, the Kelpians were flying spaceships and helping them fight the control ships. Kind of reminds me of that stupid movie Battlefield Earth, when Stone Age people learn how to fly jet planes in 1 day. And so the same kind of level of stupid was in the end of season 2 of Discovery, when the Kelpians suddenly learned how to fly Baul spaceships in 1 week. So that's extremely stupid, but you know, they are such geniuses, so maybe it makes sense. But what would they accomplish in 1,000 years? Apparently nothing. They just joined the Federation, and apparently they made peace with the Baul. They became allies of the Baul, so they became a united planet, and then they joined the Federation. And because of that, we have that Kelpian ship, which then traveled to this nebula, and then that child got mutated by the dilithium radiation, and then caused the burn, which destroyed almost all space travel in the galaxy. So all of this is because of what Discovery did in season 2. if they didn't free the Kelpians, if the Baul continued to suppress them, then we would have no Kelpians who would go into that nebula, and none of them would get super mutated to such a level. I would say it's almost like a Q level to be able to do something like that. Maybe it's because it was near that planet which is entirely made of dilithium. Maybe that somehow acts as a lens. Maybe that's what allows that wave to get to all the other dilithium in the galaxy. So we can come up with some convoluted technobabble excuses, but it still wouldn't really excuse this whole plot, because it could have been so much better. There were so many things that were established already that could have been used, like the omega particles and all of that, so why not use something that was established and it would make sense and it would tie with the other shows, but instead they make up this. And the story is not yet over, so I guess I'll refrain from making a final judgment, because maybe if they do something really interesting with that new character, and maybe if it's like a psychological study of something and it will be tied to something epic, and so if it all is worth it in the end, maybe I can forgive it, but so far I don't really like this. And as I said, it makes the Discovery crew kind of responsible for all of this. And also I think it was a huge missed opportunity when they showed the Guardian of Forever and they showed him as a human who actually talks with them directly and explains things in normal dialogue. They could have used that to simply say that all of this show is now set in a different timeline to the other ones. So that was the perfect moment to introduce that explanation that would calm down so many angry fans, because they would admit that it's a separate timeline, and then I will say, now you can do whatever you want. It's a separate timeline, so do whatever you want as if it's a separate show. So it will not annoy me as much as when you claim that it's part of the same continuity. And I said before that the fact that they kind of destroyed the Federation is annoying to me because of the many times that they save the Federation and the galaxy in all the other shows, and then we know that it's kind of pointless in the end, because after that the Federation gets destroyed, and so what was the point to save the Federation? And so that's why it's kind of annoying. But if they say it's in a separate timeline now and it's its own universe, that would be better. And so they had the perfect way to do it, and maybe technically they can still do it, and that would be in my head canon. That's how I would explain it to myself, as not to get annoyed by the show. I would say that Discovery is set in a completely different timeline, which deviated. We can say that it all deviated from the moment when Michael's parents got killed supposedly and she got adopted by Sarek, and that was the moment that doesn't really fit continuity. When they try to shoehorn her as Spock's sister, it doesn't really make sense, and it's stupid and annoying. But they did have the episode in season 2 when they revealed that she was supposed to die on Vulcan right after getting adopted. So we can say maybe that was the timeline which led to TOS and TNG and the other shows. A timeline in which Michael died in an early age and she was never Spock's sister. And maybe without Michael there would be no Klingon war, and then Starfleet would not upgrade control to such an extent that it could almost take out all life in the galaxy. And so we can use that excuse, and I made a video about that specific topic. That was my prediction of how they will end season 2 to fix all the continuity mistakes. They could have simply said that Michael will go back in time and save her own parents, and then she never gets adopted by Sarek, she never meets Spock as a child, she doesn't start the Klingon war, because part of the reason she did that was because she hated Klingons who killed her parents. But if she didn't hate them, maybe she wouldn't have killed that Klingon Messiah guy, and then if they simply captured him, that could have ended the war right away, and there would be no huge war. And if not for the war, control might not got so advanced, because Starfleet wouldn't put as many resources into it, and then there would be no control, no end of the galaxy, and then no burn either, because, as I said, it was all because of Discovery and Michael. Because in the future all life was destroyed, that's why Michael's mother had to jump back in time to try to fix it, and then Michael became the Red Angel, and then she saved the Kelpians, and because she saved the Kelpians joined the Federation, and then a Kelpian ship in the future produced this child mutant who destroyed all the lithium in the galaxy and causing all of this mess in the 32nd century. So it was all indirectly because of Michael and Discovery. So maybe in that other timeline, which we can assume was the real one, the original timeline, Michael simply didn't do all of those things. So she was never Spock's sister, there was no war with the Klingons, there was no control, there was no destruction of life in the future, and no need for the Red Angel to jump back in time and to free the Kelpians. And then the Kelpians would still be suppressed, they would still be under the thumb of the Baul, and then no mutant Kelpian child would have caused the burn. And so the future is saved and fixed, and so we can assume that's the real Star Trek timeline, the one in which all the other shows and movies took place in, is one in which the burn never happened and Michael was never famous, and so that kind of fixes all continuity problems. And another way we can use the Guardian of Forever to explain all of this is because we know that he sent Georgiou back in time to sometime before TOS, and also the fact that the Guardian allowed her to change the past of the mirror universe kind of means the past has to change now, so it will not be the same present, the same future we now see in season 3 of Discovery. It cannot possibly be the same one which will be the final timeline. All of this should be erased or be in a separate universe. Because what did we see in the mirror universe? Because we see now that she changed the past of the mirror universe, she prevented that rebellion against her, she died, and all of this was before Lorca got accidentally sent to the Discovery universe because they said that it happened during his rebellion, but now there should be no rebellion because the Emperor is dead. In the new timeline of the mirror universe, she died together with Michael, so there should be no rebellion, so maybe Lorca will simply take over and he will not be involved in any battle in which he will accidentally transport to the Discovery universe, so he will not become the captain of the Discovery. And so all of the past of Discovery should now be totally different. And I theorized early on in season 1 that maybe Lorca helped to orchestrate the whole Klingon conflict because there was that setup in the first episode that someone sabotaged some kind of relay station of Starfleet, and that's why they came there, and that's why they found that artifact of the Klingons, and that's what led to the whole war. And I remember theorizing that maybe it was either the Romulans or maybe Lorca himself who did that, who sabotaged that relay station in order to lure Starfleet there, in order or with the hopes of creating the Klingon war. And Lorca maybe wanted to do it because this way he got all the resources he wanted from Starfleet to promote the spore drive, which he needed to go back to his universe. And so maybe without the Klingon war, Discovery wouldn't have got all the resources it needed, and then the spore drive would never have been made operational. So maybe in the new timeline, which now gets created thanks to the Guardian, Lorca never goes to the Prime universe, and the spore drive never gets finished, and there is no Klingon war, and Control never takes over, and then no Red Angel would have to jump back in time, and the Kelpians would not be free, and then there will be no burn in the future, and then it will all fit much better to the real Star Trek timeline, in which none of these things were supposed to happen. And so that is kind of a neat way to explain away all the continuity mistakes, which I really doubt they will do that, but we can kind of theorize that maybe that's what's happening. Maybe there are multiple timelines. We actually know there are multiple timelines. That was stated even in this show. They acknowledged that the Kelvin timeline, for example. They said that that alien in the TNG uniform called Yor came from the Kelvin timeline somehow, and I'm actually okay with the existence of multiple different timelines of the Star Trek universe, and I think that's the best excuse to explain away all continuity mistakes together. Instead of trying to come up with convoluted theories individually to explain every single mistake, we can simply say it's all in a different timeline. That's a much better explanation for everything in just one sentence. So that's what they should have done with this show. They should have just admitted that the entire show is taking place in a different timeline, and then they can do whatever they want. And so that will be less annoying. And I saw a few prominent YouTubers who mistakenly assumed that the show admitted that. They didn't understand that scene with that time-traveling alien in a TNG uniform called Yor, and some of the dialogue, it sounded as if the guy with the glasses was saying "you're here," as if he's talking about Discovery, but he was actually talking about this alien in the TNG uniform. And I blame this show for making that dialogue so unclear. The fact that they picked a guy named Yor and put him in part of that convoluted dialogue, and that confuses a lot of people. So I don't blame all those YouTubers who got confused, because some of them thought the show is admitting that it's all taking place in the Kelvin timeline. I wish that was the case. That would have made so much more sense. But that's not what they said. They said that the alien called Yor is the one who came from the Kelvin timeline somehow, and that's what causing him to disintegrate. And that's a whole separate topic of time travel being risky to your health, apparently, so maybe I'll discuss that separately. But I actually kind of like the fact that they're acknowledging the existence of the other timelines, a different universe, because I think that's the best way to explain away all continuity mistakes, and maybe even allow for some crossovers in the future. That would be kind of fun to go back to the original timeline of how it's supposed to look like and what everything is supposed to be. That could be so much fun. And so the show should admit that its own so-called prime timeline is also in a separate timeline to the one in the old shows, and then we would have less problems with it. It wouldn't be so annoying as them trying so forcefully to shoehorn themselves into the old continuity, just showing Leonard Nimoy as a hologram with a clip of him from TNG and saying that is the same Spock that we saw in Discovery, even though he doesn't look anything like him. That was kind of silly. So maybe they should have just showed the new actor with the old man makeup. I think that would have been better, because it would help establish this as a totally separate timeline. But the fact they showed Leonard Nimoy is showing that they're trying to shoehorn themselves in with the old continuity, and it doesn't work, because they're not paying attention to the details and they're messing things up. And so I don't trust them to be able to keep continuity, and therefore I would prefer if they simply say the whole show is in a separate timeline. And that's in my head canon now. That's what I would say from now on. I would say that since the Guardian of Forever sent Georgiou back in the past, and she changed the past of the mirror universe, and that means Lorca would not go into the Prime universe, he would not help create the Klingon War, he would not finish the project of the Spore Drive, it will never get developed, and Michael will never get famous, and she was never the adopted sister of Sarek because her parents would never get killed, and Red Angel would never save the Kelpians, and then there will be no Burn in the future of that original timeline, the one in which all the other shows take place in. So that's my headcanon, that's my theory that I prefer right now to explain away all the continuity mistakes. So that's all I had to say about it for today. Let me know what you think, and we can discuss it in the comment section below, and I will see you all next time. Bye bye.